Evelina. Hello, everyone.
How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. I can't believe how quickly January's flown by.
Yeah, definitely. So this time on the topic of January and the time going by, we've decided to talk about goals and New Year's resolutions. As usually, this is about the time when our intentions and routines and our energy for exercising starts to wither away, and we find ourselves back to old and healthy habits and routines. So we thought it would be very useful at this time just to give it a little bit of a boost and just take time to revisit, your goals, your intentions, and actually the whole neuroscience of uh, how our goals and intentions really work, and why so often we can't achieve them, why we find it so difficult to stick to some of those habits and healthy routines and our intentions. So yeah, Valentina, do you want to just kind of cover some little bits of a summary of what we will cover today? So what for those of you who are listening, what is it that we will be covering this time?
So, today we're going to have a think about those goals and what makes setting a goal likely to succeed. And then on the flip side of that, what makes it unlikely to be successful? What makes you unlikely to be successful in a new goal or a new habit? How that relates to your values and your beliefs, and the influence that those can have on your success with your goals. And a little bit about your identity as well and how that plays into things with achieving your goals or your intentions.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. I think definitely, the concept of identity is so often taken for granted, and it can definitely either drive our success and what we achieve or be a limitation. So will be very interesting to explore that as well. So yeah, so we would be very curious to hear, for those of you who are listening, what is it that you are trying to achieve right now? Is there any goal? Is there any specific intention? Is there any specific new habits, new healthy behaviors that you are trying to embed? What is it exactly that you are trying to work on right now? And what is stopping you from, maybe what works and what doesn't work when you think about making that goal into reality? So we'd love to hear some thoughts and feedback so we can make this session as valuable as possible for you, and we can help you with your specific goals rather than just talking generically about the theory and so on. So
Indeed.
yeah, so I think what would be a nice way of introducing this is looking at why goals most of the time fail, and what are the wrong ways that people set goals. Because I think before we kind of talk about what to do, it's nice to look at what not to do, because it's sometimes easier to eliminate some of these processes rather than take on some big things. So Valentina, from your knowledge and your research and so on, what are some of those reasons that stop our goals from being successful, and what are the way not to
Yeah.
do this?
So I think really if we start at the beginnings and choosing what your goals are. So really investigating why you've set an intention or why you've set a goal. Is it for somebody else? So if it's someone else who's telling you it would be better if you were like this, or maybe everyone else is doing it, things like hitting the gym in January, dry January, all of this. um are you choosing this goal because it's what others are doing, or because it's what you actually want? And I think it's very important when you are setting goals is to really, really flesh out your intention with it, and your motivations. What is the emotional driver? So not just logically, oh, I should probably do this thing a bit more. I should probably exercise a bit more. But what is your emotional motivation for it? Because if we're doing things based on logic, what other people have told us, then that's all well and good. But it means that it only stays in our head and it doesn't kind of go into our body and into our kind of our hearts, our guts, our emotions, however you like to think about that. And that's what really drives us. So I think you say quite often, Evelina, like emotion is energy in motion. And if we want to garner energy for our goals, we have to have an emotion behind it that drives us. So I think that's can be a big reason as to why often goals and intentions don't get fulfilled.
Yeah, absolutely. So setting that goal with this positive energy and positive intention, and very often, I think we see it in a coaching and therapy context, right? When clients come to us and we ask them, why are you here? What do you want? Instead, they will tell us all of the things that they don't want, right? I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to be smoking. I don't want to be single. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want X, Y, Z. And when you say, so what do you want instead? People often don't even know, right? And it's I think one of the biggest reasons why some of those goals fail is exactly that we don't actually have this very clear positive intention, this positive direction. It's like, driving without putting a postcode in your sat nav, right? Just trying to drive around and hope that at some point we'll get to that specific point of destination that we would like to get to, right? So we need that guiding North Star, and that is not a cognitive rational goal. That is emotion, because that is motivating energy. That is that kind of purposeful, that's your why, right? Like, why are you doing this? And how does that goal look like from visual point of view, right? If you can visualize yourself, if you say, I don't want to be smoking, how does that alternative look like to you? If you say, I want to be healthy, I want to be fit, I want to be whatever that your definition of the success looks like, that's what we should supposed to be starting, rather than this kind of negativity of what I don't want, right?
Absolutely. And I think that having really fleshing out that vision and that intention for your future, and not just thinking of it as an abstract thing. So thinking, and kind of, you can go through a meditation with this, you can journal with this as a prompt. You can just sit down and think about it if neither of those are your things. But really ask yourself the question. So, okay, so once I have achieved my goal, assuming this will happen, once I have achieved my goal, how will I feel? How will I feel? What will that open up for me? So what will I be able to do or what will I be able to feel that I wasn't able to when I hadn't achieved that goal? What will I see? So what might be a visual cue in my environment, in looking in the mirror, in kind of how I see the world? What will be a visual cue that I have achieved that goal? What will I hear? And these can be, they don't have to be really directly related. So if it's, say, something about fitness, it might be I will see my body looking differently, but it might be more that I can see a social scene in which I feel confident and happy and able to engage with people without feeling self-conscious, let's say. Whatever your goal is, but it's important to really try and visualize it in a way that you are present in that reality, rather than as an abstract kind of removed ideal. And then from that point, you can engage with that and use that as a motivating factor, really create an image that you want to strive towards, that you feel connected to. And then the path towards it feels a lot clearer, because you know what your destination is and you have a much clearer sense of that.
Yeah. Also, what is very interesting here is you're talking about this kind of vision, right? And the visualization of exploring, how does it feel? How does it look like? How does that success taste like, right? Like exploring all of these different submodalities that really allow us to kind of prep our nervous system for what does it feel to be that person, what does it feel to live that kind of life, what does it feel to look that way, what does it feel to behave in that way, what are the results, what are these other doors of opportunity open. And there are these different approaches of how we can use this for our motivation. And some of us are much some people derive motivation from working towards that vision, and some other people have that vision, but they are much more motivated by working away, away from the pain, away from the current reality potentially, right? So depending on from where you derive your motivation, it can be more useful or less useful to to fully associate yourself in that state while setting the goals. Because there is one theory that says that from brain point of view, if you think about this, your brain doesn't actually know what is real and what is imagined. So for some people, associating it fully into that state, now you got it, right? So why would you now work towards that goal if you can just, feel all of these emotions and imagine you just have it, right? You can just have it any moment. When you feel like you need that bit of a boost, you just ramp up your visualization and your imagination, and boom, there you are, right? So from some point of view, if your body is more inclined to derive motivation kind of from the pain, that can be counterintuitive way of fueling that motivation for ourselves. So it is very, very important to know the difference. However, even if you are motivated away from, it is still important to know that vision. But what would you do in that case? That you would step into that vision, you would visualize, what is it exactly that perfect ideal looks like, and how does it feel like? But then you would kind of step out of it and see it in the distance and associate yourself into the pain points. How does it look like now in comparison to this? If you don't take action, what is the worst case scenario? What happens if you don't achieve it, and what will that mean for your results? And you can then have that in a distance as an ideal that you need to work towards, but you can set goals from that place of the pain point. But if you are that kind of person that is motivated by those inspiring visions, and you are really easily pulled towards, then you can actually set your goals, steps, and next actions from that amazing place. Like, what does it feel to be here? How did I get here? Right? How can I take the steps backwards to really figure out, how did I get here? What did it took to arrive to this destination? So I think it can be quite personal and individual, but definitely the power of that vision to either kind of pull towards that and work towards that is really, really crucial for us to be able to achieve that.
Absolutely.
So you're priming your nervous system for this.
Yeah, certainly. And I think as well, so when you then can have that clearer perspective on the journey, so you know where your destination is, but you're also identifying with where you're at now, then that makes it easier to recognize what will be the checkpoints along the way where you will be able to say, yes, I have made one step further, etc. Because once we can recognize those, then we'll know these points, that we'll get this feeling of reward and success along the journey rather than just at the destination. And that's really, really important.
Absolutely.
Because we need to fall in love with the journey of change. Because if it's all about the destination, we only have so much willpower. Willpower is neurologically a finite resource. We can only kind of be in a state of self-denial or kind of concentration for so long. So that will only get you so far. You need to also want to do what you're doing. And part of that will come from gaining a sense of reward and fulfillment for achieving these checkpoints. And also with that, what can be quite useful is, so if we were working on a one-to-one coaching basis, then you would have the accountability of talking to your coach, letting them know your progress, and also having that space to step back, reflect, look at what's been working well, where you've met barriers, reflect on kind of where those barriers are coming from, what they mean, and how you might overcome them. But that's something that if you're not working with a coach, then you might choose a person in your life who is close to you, who you trust, who is non-judgmental, and you might just go to them and let them know that this is your goal, and just ask them to check in with you, say every week, couple of weeks or something like that, to keep the accountability, so that you know that you're going to have, if you do slip up, you're going to have to tell someone about it. And not only are you going to have to tell someone about it, but you're going to have to address it, address the actual barrier that's come up. And you don't have to do that, with a person that's not a coach or someone personal in your life. But it's just the kind of trigger to stop and have that reflection. Again, like I said, you can do that through a meditation, through journaling, whatever works best for you. But really having those checkpoints to stop and reflect on your journey and think about, okay, what's becoming a barrier for me, and investigate why that is. What purpose is the barrier serving? What might that be trying to protect you from? What need might that be trying to get you to meet? How could you address that need in another way, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it looks like, I'm not sure if this is just for me or for everyone else, but it looks as though you might have frozen, Evelina.
I think there's some issues with the stream. Something is there's some hopefully you can hear us and you can see us. So if you're watching, just let us know. It seems there's some notification, but some. So yeah, as you were talking, Valentina, about the importance of having an accountability partner, it can be really, really powerful to do those things together with someone. So if you commit to achieving specific goal, why?
It looks like you may have frozen again, Evelina. I'm not sure if that's working. Hello. Did you disconnect and reconnect?
Hello. Yes, something's not right with the connection. So just kind of disconnected and reconnected. So hopefully this stream can continue. So yeah, it's really, really powerful to have that accountability partner and either do things together with other person, or like you mentioned, Valentina, just simply have someone to report to, essentially, right? Like to really have a check-in points where other person can keep you accountable to the process, even if they are not doing the same process with you. And as you started talking about limitations, the other reason why our goals very often fail is that we work with them only at this kind of cognitive, rational level, and we set goals with our.
So it looks like you may be disconnecting again. I'll try and continue from where I imagine that you're at. So we were talking about setting goals with kind of at this rational level, and thinking about it logically. And we had mentioned about limiting beliefs, or beliefs generally, or the things that might get in the way. And limiting beliefs may be one of those. So beliefs that we have about ourselves or about the world or about others that might make it impossible for us to achieve our aim. So things like, if you are, let's say, I mean, we keep using this example of fitness, but I think maybe I'll try something else. Maybe something like reducing alcohol. So let's say you are deciding to reduce your alcohol consumption. And if you go into that thinking, and especially with things like dry January, if you go into that thinking, well, I'm always going to drink, I like drinking, and I need to drink to be in a social situation, so I will do it for a period and then I know that I will stop, then you will stop. That is, you will fulfill the belief that you kind of live by. The beliefs that you hold, you will fulfill. So if you believe that you will not be able to succeed, you will not be able to succeed. And I think that that's quite important to note, because a lot of the time when we go into changing our habits, we don't really address this place of self-belief because or this, the beliefs that lie behind it, because we can be coming from a place of self criticism because we're trying to change something about ourselves. So there's obviously something that we don't like. And it's important when we do set those goals for making a change about ourselves that we come from a place of really believing that we can make that change, understanding why we are how we are currently, and having self-compassion and love for ourselves in that moment and for that part of ourselves, but understanding that we would like to close that book, leave it behind, and move on to the next chapter and really get excited about that. Welcome back.
Okay, right. So I don't know what happened there.
Hopefully it's working. I was just sort of trying to fill in where I was imagining you were going, and started to talk a little bit about limiting beliefs. Oh, it looks like you may have disconnected again. Oh no. All right, I'll continue where I was, and hopefully we'll be able to sort of muddle our way through this topic. But yeah, so really addressing those beliefs. So with that example of cutting down alcohol, if you believe, for example, that you can't socialize or go to a social occasion without drinking, or have fun at a social occasion without drinking, then you will not be able to go to a social occasion without drinking, or have fun at a social occasion without drinking. And really addressing where that comes from will be kind of a very useful point to look at how to address that limiting belief. Welcome back, Evelina. I don't know how long we have you for. Every time you come back, I'm not sure.
Yes, I think it's definitely very interesting to reflect on limiting beliefs, right? Because I think very often we set intentions and we set our goals with this kind of rational, logical mind, but actually all of our actions, all of our habits, all of our daily practices are being driven by mostly subconscious habits and behaviors, right? We are mainly automatically kind of going on this autopilot. So that's another reason why we so often don't achieve our goals, because we set them at that rational, logical level, but then we don't know how to actually drive it through these automatic processes. So we end up fighting ourselves, right? Our subconscious evolutionary needs are very different to some of these cognitive, rational, logical goals that we set nowadays. So we find ourselves in conflict. Like, we know that we need to be healthy, that we should be eating healthier, but we still choose to have a slice of chocolate cake instead of a kale salad. We know that we're supposed to be exercising, and then yet we still choose to binge watch Netflix series instead of going for a walk on a lovely sunny day, because those intentions of kind of evolutionary drivers of safety, protection, survival, preserving energy, and connection, and just really saving both energy and time for ourselves, and kind of conserving the energy and protecting it all, is in conflict with fitting into your bikini for your next holidays and so on. So it is very, very important that we know how to connect with that level of motivation of these evolutionary drivers of safety, of survival, of exploration and excitement for different level of motivation that connects with those evolutionary drivers. And a lot of our limitations and values and beliefs also sit at that subconscious level. And we learn a lot of things about the world, about ourselves, about other people, and whether we think that we can or we think we can't, we are right. Whether we think that people are good or the world is against us, the world will evolve based on those belief systems that we have built for ourselves throughout our usually our yearly early years. So it is important to also address all of those subconscious barriers, like what is it stopping me? What is this ceiling, this kind of invisible glass ceiling that is limiting my potential? If you feel like you have that ceiling, sometimes you know what is it exactly that is stopping you, and you don't know what to do about it. But then there are some other times that we don't even know. We just know that we are not living up to our full potential from that point of view.
Absolutely. And, really addressing those specific beliefs that we notice that we can catch ourselves as we talk to ourselves when we set a goal. And where do we start to make claims about facts of reality? So I was giving the example before, Evelina, about, let's say someone is trying to cut down or stop drinking, and they have the belief that they can't be in social situations without drinking. So not drinking means just not going to so many social occasions or feeling uncomfortable in these social occasions. And if somebody really believes that they can't be in that environment without having a drink, then that will happen, because we will believe that we don't have the skills, that we don't have the confidence, that we don't have the social awareness. All of these different things will kind of support that limiting belief.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we really address that limiting belief, so why do I believe that I can't be in that circumstance? Is that a belief that relates to my confidence? Is that a belief that relates to my previous experience? Really investigate that and try and find the ways to create a bridge over it, so that you can find a way to be in that social situation without drinking that can still be consistent with your values and beliefs. So, and also I think that practice with these things makes perfect. So with something like that, let's test it. So we are deciding that there's this belief that is limiting us, that we would like to investigate further. Okay, well, let's see if I can go to a social occasion, let's say, and spend an hour and a half there without having a drink, and that will be the testing point, or something like that. And I think it's
proving yourself wrong in that way, because some of those thoughts, well, in general, thoughts are not real, right? Thoughts are constructs that then are being used to justify the emotional motivations and drive us either towards something or away from something. So we always have, like, emotion always comes first, and some of our fears, hopes, dreams, all of that is energy and fuel to motivate us to move towards something or away from something else. And then we justify it with logic and reason that says, okay, I did that because, and you tell that story that doesn't always match the subconscious undercurrent that is really driving the emotional fuel for that intention. And here, as well, as you mentioned before, concept of identity here, it's so crucial in this, because as soon as you attach a label to yourself, I am not confident, I am shy, I am overweight, I am not beautiful, I am, I'm not a person who has a good memory. As soon as we're attaching those labels to ourselves, it becomes this part of identity that then defines how we behave, how we act, and what kind of results we are able to achieve in life. So sometimes the right question to ask is not what I want to achieve, but who do I need to become in order to achieve that? What kind of person will be that character, that best version of myself, that then will be able to achieve any goals and any intentions? What do they need to believe? How do they need to behave? How do they need to act? What kind of knowledge, qualifications, skills they need to develop? And it is a journey of continuous growth and personal development, as we never stop learning, we never stop growing. And the moment we say I am, now that becomes a shell and a limitation in that way, unless we are using it, okay, that who I am today is not the same person who I can be tomorrow. And we can then continuously take action to bridge that gap between who am I now and, how can I be that best version of myself in those different contexts and those different circumstances.
Certainly, and really looking at our conception of our own identity in relation to our goals is, I think, such a key point, because a lot of the time it's that we don't see ourselves, we don't identify with this person who has achieved these goals or who lives in this way. And if we can find a way to identify with that person, as in understanding that our identity is fluid and always changing. I mean, we are not the same. We might have certain core personality traits, but that's very different from having the same identity throughout our lives. And similarly, we might have our experiences and our backgrounds all contribute towards our identity, but how they do that is still within your control. So how those experiences and events express themselves later in your life, if we look at the example of, say, trauma is something that it's, profoundly affecting on someone's sense of identity and who they are. But it's the relationship with that trauma that can either, I'm creating a binary here because there's obviously a lot in between, but for the sake of this example, that experience of trauma we can understand that as weakening, or we can understand that as strengthening. We can understand it as a way that we have practiced resilience and overcome a challenge and proven to ourselves that we can succeed in the face of difficulty. Or we can see it as something that has chipped away at our resilience and still does so. So really looking at your sense of identity in relation to the goal and investigating what are the parts of my identity that are in conflict with this goal or with the achievement of this goal, and what are the parts of my identity that are coherent with it. And for those parts that are coherent, really trying to kind of identify with those, expand that vision, and kind of ask those questions about, how do I feel? What can I see? Who do I need to become? Who am I to achieve this goal?
Yeah.
But really investigating those ones that conflict as well, and seeing if there are ways that you can find. And if if you're working one-to-one with a coach, then this would be a much longer process and you'd get a lot more support. But it's looking into how can you still understand those parts of yourself without them being rigid and limiting
or being in conflict, right? So I think it's also, when we talk about identity, we always think, okay, this is who I am. But in reality, we have all of these different parts of ourselves that have their own different limitations, their own different skills, their own different beliefs associated to that. And it can be very, very different. And we know those parts where we are giving ourselves, multiple labels. If I was to ask you, who are you? And somebody asked me, like, who am I? Right? I could say, okay, I am a mother, but I'm also a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a business owner. I'm a psychologist. I am X, Y, Z, right? So you have all of these different labels, but behind each of those, there are also specific behavioral rules that you attach to yourself, specific beliefs. The way I behave in front of my team, the way I behave on stage, the way I behave when I'm consulting my clients at organizations, is very different to who I am when I'm playing with my daughter or or walking the dog, right? So there are a lot of different ways of thinking and even the beliefs that are associated to those parts. But there are also all these other parts that are invisible, that don't have those labels. Parts of us that have been traumatized when we were kids, parts of us that are hopeful and have courage to dream, and parts of us that are fearful and are afraid to take the next step. And different kind of environments will activate different parts of us. And sometimes when people say, oh, I want to be more confident, for example, confidence is such a great example to use, because who wouldn't want to be more confident? It always, whatever you're working on, you always want to have more confidence. But now here is a question for you. You want to be more confident when and where? Because confidence is not something that you have or you don't have. It's a situational resource, and people will find themselves that they can be, very confident, I don't know, chatting up a stranger in a bar, but you will not be confident delivering a presentation at work. And yet confidence as a resource in itself, that is not something, it's kind of just illustration, that is not something you have or you don't have. It's how you apply that resource in specific situation, and how that environment that you are in actually activates that part of you that is confident, or that other part of you that is actually shy and is doubting themselves. So in that therapeutic or coaching process, we can actually use this process of transference, where you say, okay, so you are confident in this scenario. You can extract that resource and give people tools to then apply it in these different environments and circumstances, which is much easier than process than thinking that I am not confident person. How do I learn confidence? It's not something that you have to learn. It's something that you have to transfer from your own different parts of yourself, and kind of know how to tap into those different parts of your identity.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like with so many of these things, it's always so much easier to develop something that already exists rather than trying to cultivate something completely new. And I think we often feel like we are cultivating something completely new, when actually we have the seed of that resource within us, and maybe in other contexts that might seem far removed. It might seem something, irrelevant or different, but actually the seed of that resource is already within you in a given situation, or within an association with a person or a certain relationship. I bet if you try really, really hard, you can actually find the seed of that resource already in you. And then it becomes a lot easier to kind of flesh that out and transfer
Yeah.
to other
And
situations.
sometimes it is very difficult to find that on your own. And that's where, coaching therapy can be quite useful, because there's other person seeing this resource in you and helps you to bring it out, and to kind of illustrate the truth in what Valentina is saying, that actually you have that seed. For those of you who are listening, think about how you were when you were a child, and the energy that you have when you believe that everything is possible, that you can dream, that when somebody asks you who you're going to be when you grow up, and you give the list of all these, I'm going to be an actress and a singer and a pilot and a rocket scientist and so on. And yet then we go through life and we lose this courage, we lose this freedom to dream, we lose this level of creativity, because we kind of learn through life, kind of we touch certain things and we burn, and then we believe that we shouldn't be touching anything else new anymore. So sometimes achieving some of those goals is not necessarily about learning extra skills and fighting even harder and doing even more, but it's actually peeling off some of those layers of what are some of those unhelpful things that we are saying to us ourselves. What are these unhelpful behavioral patterns? What are these kind of subconscious limiting beliefs that we have acquired through life that actually need to be dismantled, so we can go back to the core of who we are? Because once we connect to that, that's the place from where we can plant those seeds, and grow those best parts of ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, that might be just the right time to kind of introduce the goal setting workshop that we're doing in a couple of weeks' time. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So I think here we are talking a lot in the conceptual terms and theory. But for those of you who have either a specific goal or intention that you would like to achieve, or you feel like you have some sort of a limitation, some sort of a barrier, glass ceiling, something that limits your full potential, we are having a more or less full day workshop to really unpack this, and very practical, very hands-on. And we will be really looking at how your brain specifically created some of those barriers and limitations, and will unpack some of those beliefs, values that need to be in a place to drive the change. But also we'll be building a very practical action plan for next 12 weeks, so you know exactly who do you need to become, what is my vision, what is it exactly that I want to achieve, what are the specific limitations that are holding me back, and what is my action plan to grow, to learn, and to overcome those things over the next 12 weeks. So you'll be walking away with a very, very practical guide and different level of self-awareness about the way to achieve what you want and overcome your limitations. So we will drop a link in a chat. We will share the event in the comments. So feel free to sign up, and we are looking forward to seeing you there.
absolutely. Yeah, wonderful. Hopefully, you sign up and look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Lovely. Have a good day.